All right, I'm going to bring in now Ted Deutch. He's the CEO of the American Jewish Committee and a former Democratic congressman from Florida. Mr. Deutch, thank you for being here because you've got a unique perspective, right, on what she just had to say. And I certainly had more questions. Looking at this timeline, I want to show you on attacks on synagogues. Pittsburgh, San Diego, Texas over the last years and months, and now 2026. And I want to ask you about what Nessel had to say, because she brought it past what we talked about with the war in Gaza, students on campuses, and she spoke specifically about the modern political environment.
Well, thanks for having me. The Attorney General is right to bring up the anti-Semitism on the far right and far left. But, Audie, I just have to take a moment. I think we all have to reflect on what happened in Michigan. And what happened in Michigan yesterday should horrify every American. Someone drove a truck with explosives into a synagogue preschool where 140 kids were inside. A grandmother told me that her granddaughter was hiding under a desk. Now, thankfully, no children were hurt, but this is the reality that Jewish communities are increasingly living with. Your timeline shows that. And so when the Attorney General talks about anti-Semitism and where it comes from, she's exactly right. It comes from the far right. It's conspiracy theorists. It comes from the far left, people whose hatred of Israel is hatred of Jews that puts Jews at risk. And just like anti-Semitism comes from both sides of the political spectrum, all of us across the political spectrum also have to play a role in fighting it.
I want to talk more about the idea of fighting it. I saw some bickering online between Laura Loomer and Tucker Carlson, her accusing him and Candace Owens saying that she knew their hatred would lead to people shooting up Jews in synagogues. And earlier this week, Ted Cruz said this at a conference, and I want to play this for you, and you can tell me if this is an example of what it would mean to speak up.
I believe Tucker Carlson is the single most dangerous demagogue in this country. And I'll tell you, I've made the decision that I'm going to take him on head directly. Nick Fuentes is easy to denounce. And I actually think it's a tell among a Republican politician if they'll denounce Fuentes but are scared to say Tucker's name. That tells you a great deal. Nick Fuentes is a goose-stepping Nazi.
Now, I want to be clear. We're talking about other lone actors, people with, a pro-ISIS past with the events of the last 24 hours. The reason why I'm bringing in all of this dialogue and rhetoric is because I actually don't hear that many people speaking like Ted Cruz. Do you? And who would you like to hear from, even from the administration?
Well, I'm glad that you played that clip because that is exactly what we should all expect. We all have a stake in fighting this. I mean, Audie, we've seen this now. Again, the timeline of attacks on synagogues is one way to understand what's happening. The number of people who have been injured and killed is another way to understand what's happening, and the fact that this isn't just something that's playing out on social media, although social media companies, we have to say, have a responsibility in enforcing their own rules to stop the spread of this. But leaders have to speak up. When Senator Cruz calls out those in his own party, he's powerfully addressing the challenge that all of us have to take up. Anybody can attack people who have different political views. That's not hard. And I was a member of Congress. That's what elected officials do all the time. I would argue with the dramatic increase in partisanship, it's too often. But that aside, this is what they do. But we need to be able to call them out on the same side. When you otherwise agree with them, but you hear them saying things when their criticism of Israel puts Jews at risk because it demonizes Israel in ways that target Jews. Yes, I would like to hear that from leaders in the Democratic Party.
I want to ask you about that. We're going to have a Democrat speaking on later, but this is important. Right now, it is almost considered a litmus test to say on the Democratic side, I, as a candidate, am not going to take money from AIPAC, the pro-Israel and at one point was described as bipartisan lobby group. Can you talk about this on the Democratic side? Because now it is reaching that breaking point where you have people like Bernie Sanders or whoever saying they back the oligarchy, et cetera. How do you hear that language?
Well, I hear language from Democratic elected officials who are telling the country, and from some Democratic elected officials, I want to be clear, who are telling the country and who are telling a lot of people who identify as Democrats that, and Jews especially, that because they feel a connection to Israel, to their homeland, the one Jewish state in the country, that because they think that Israel has a right to defend itself and has a right to exist in peace in the region, that somehow that belief disqualifies them, or even disqualifies them from being a part of the political process. There are people who get involved in politics for lots of reasons, and to demonize them because the thing that motivates them is their support for the state of Israel, absolutely is a problem. And I would tell my Democratic friends, as I tell my Republican friends, that when you decide that somehow there is political gain in going after a community just because it supports Israel, or going after a community in ways where that antagonism toward Israel puts Jews at risk, then you're putting politics at risk, and you're putting your own political futures at risk. And being against Israel is not a litmus test, and if it is, then there's a much, much bigger problem than this. This is a moment. Think about yesterday. 140 kids were in a preschool. The idea that something that's happening 6,000 miles away somehow would lead to somebody driving a car with explosives into a preschool is outrageous. That's what everyone has to speak out about.
This is Ted Deutch. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thanks so much.
We're going to continue this.